Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Lucklight Plays. We're continuing our run-through of Destiny of an Emperor. This is part of 8-Bit Obscurity, and here we are, still in Hulao Gate. I just want to finish talking to everybody, and you come to listen to Chitu Ma's story. Oh, sure. King of Horses. He can run 1,000 miles a day without even getting tired. Yeah, that's kind of true. I also picked up Huo Hu. He was the guy I just picked up here, and I went back and got him. He has better intelligence than Mijie did. So, I took him along. Because why not? Improving ourselves is all part of this game. What do you got to say, old man? Wait, you're all the way up here? You're lost. If you go west, you will reach Luo Yang, which is our target. We need to stop Dong Zhuo. Zhang Fei, I'm Cao Cao, and I'm leading the Imperial Army. We couldn't catch him. We occupied Hulao Gate, thanks to your support. Yuan Shu and Commander-in-Chief Yuan Chao have gone to Luo Yang. I should go to Luo Yang at once. Hope you will join us there, and I must say goodbye. I will say this. In this game, it kind of leaves out one of the most important and dynamic rivalries. What starts as a rivalry from the game. Leaves it out. Liu Bei and Cao Cao were rivals to the point of bitter enemies throughout the series. Like, they never really, said like, you suck, no, you suck. But they were always known to be as the two guys who would always be kind of trying to one-up each other in one way or another, to the point where the whole war of the Three Kingdoms was essentially Liu Bei and Cao Cao and the third guy. And the third guy really was just trying to protect his own place, while Liu Bei and Cao Cao constantly butt heads in various forms or another. In this game, they leave that out. Cao Cao is not really the villain. Although you could really say he wasn't really the villain in the book either. It's all based on where you, on who you think is the villain or not. It's open to interpretation. The book itself paints Cao Cao as the villain while Liu Bei is the hero, but neither one of them do really, like, dastardly evil things. They're not Dong Zhuo. Dong Zhuo does openly evil things. Liu Bei and Cao Cao, they just had different ways of running, of ideas of how to run the country, and they would butt heads. And the book's author shows his bias very, very quickly and very easily in the story. Very quick to insult certain groups or certain people, mainly because when it was written in 14th century, I think he was trying to make a point about don't repeat history. So there are certain groups he just openly, like, writes evil about. He doesn't really write evil about Cao Cao, but he paints Cao Cao as almost a villain, as almost this treacherous villain. And a lot of characters will call him this treacherous villain. But then he turns around and writes, like, these really fun stories about Cao Cao and how, like, crafty he could be. But anyway, this game really doesn't get into that at all. Cao Cao, he shows up in the beginning, he talks to you a few times, and then he kind of vanishes for a while. It's not until Cao Cao quote-unquote dies that your country has a problem with his. That your group has a problem with his group. So Cao Cao is almost like the glue that held the place together. In the second game, in Destiny of the Emperor 2, which wasn't released here in America, unfortunately, Cao Cao's the main villain. But in this one, he's just kind of there. He's there, and then he's not. was kind of disappointing, because the whole dynamic between the two characters was really what made, at least to me, the story really interesting. And honestly, at least for me, the three kingdoms are named Wei, Wu, and Shu. Liu Bei and his forces are considered Shu, which they're not Shu right now. They'll eventually become Shu. It'll be explained in the story, don't worry. But Cao Cao's forces, the Wei side, W-E-I, Wei, are my favorite troops. Is my favorite group. So if I could somehow play this game in their point of view, I would totally do it. But, I mean, and there is ROM hacks that will change the main characters to be the forces of Wei, or the forces of Wu, or the forces of the Yellow Turbans, or the forces of Dong Zhuo, or Yuan Shao. Like, they change the forces, but the story itself really doesn't change that much. It's more, kind of they pasted over the characters. I may be wrong on that one. It may have changed. They may have been continued working on them throughout the years and made it so the storyline changes, the map changes, and you start in different areas and conquer different areas. So maybe I'll research that a little bit more, and I don't think I will play them on the show because I don't want this channel to turn into Destiny of the Emperor, the channel. So there'll be plenty of that. But I better heal. But apparently there are just different ways you can play this game, different ROM hacks you can get for this game nowadays that will change the outlook of the game. I don't really know how detailed they are. Right now I'm just playing the original, and I'm going to stick to that. But, I guess the moral of the story here... by the way, what I'm doing is I'm going back and healing up, because the Luo Yang fight is actually pretty tough, and I am pretty weak right now, in terms of hit points. What was I saying? So, I guess the moral of the story is, don't consider... When we get to that point, right now, we can consider these guys villains. Dong Zhuo and his troops are villains. The Yellow Turbans, you can kind of consider as villains, even though they were all about, rising against an oppressive empire at the time. The empire was crumbling and they, rebelled. But they're still considered kind of nasty villains. They were killing more civilians than they were saving. But so these guys you can consider bad guys, villains. But there becomes a point of the game where you kind of can stop thinking them as villains and just thinking them as opponents to your rule. The Three Kingdoms had different ideas of how to rule, and different ambitions for why they should be the head honcho of China. Oh, why do I join? I'm gonna say, not so much. I'm gonna off the field though. That being said, I think the Nintendo game itself tries its best to paint them as villains anyway. So, Wu and Wei will do things that they normally wouldn't do in the story, just to show extra villainous. So, our childlike minds back in the day of 1989 would look at that and be like, ooh, they're the bad guys, we need to fight them and save the world. It was a much different story. And it was a much different outcome than what this game can portray. Doing my best not to be able to tell stories without revealing spoilers for the game, because Granted, I mean, most of everybody knows, oh, hello, hello, hello. This may be bad. Oh yeah, by the way, sometimes the random battles can be tougher than the actual, castle battles. Like when that happens. I've had a random battle happen with 5 different generals, and I lost. So, but, what was I saying? I went the wrong way. Like, I'm trying not to reveal spoilers of the story. Like, most people who have played Dynasty Wars kind of know what the storylines is and the way it's gonna go. If they pay attention to that, some people just play that game just to, you know, press the square button or press the, you know, just to press one button and do a bunch of attacks and fight soldiers, but, really, the winner of this Nintendo game is not going to be the winner of the story. I guess is the best way to describe it. You are too late. Are you right, Luo Yang? Lu Bu came here and trounced us. Look, if Dong Zhuo and Lu Bu cooperate, we don't stand a chance. I'm going home. I should have known better to ally with idiots. Now, you're a nice guy. I think that was Yuan Shu. They don't really say who it is, but... Such a weak army doesn't stand a chance against me and Lu Bu. Do you really think you could just march in and occupy Luo Yang? No question mark? What lunacy. Dong Zhuo and Lu Bu, and we were caught off guard, because, God forbid, if we had the first shot in. Okay, so... that is why I went back and healed first, because these guys are very, very tough. He only has 162 attack versus his 255. We're gonna go after Lu Bu first, obviously, but Dong Zhuo's no slouch either. Let's see if I can burn some hit points off of him. Excuse me, soldiers. I can't. So they're both gonna hit really hard, and they have pretty solid defense. So what I need to do is just do my best, heal when I can, like right now. Keep my guys up, and once I get at least one of them down, things get much more manageable. But having them both up at the same time can get very dangerous very quickly. This is the first of many challenging battles. Although you could really say Hua Zhang's battle was challenging if you weren't ready for it, which commonly happens. Like, the yellow turbans were not strong by any means. But once you run into Hua Zhang, it's like, okay, this is when the game really starts, and really you need to think about what you're doing before you do it. It also helps that I know who's in what battle, since I played this like many times. Which doesn't mean I'm gonna be 100%, you know, successful in this, mind you. It's a very tough game if you don't grind, like I'm trying not to. Trying not to needlessly grind to the point where everything just falls in front of me. Plus bad things can happen, like critical hits. Critical hits to me, anyway. I want critical hits to them. Alright, so Lu Bu is vanquished. Now, things have become a little bit more manageable. Let me, try to heal as much as I can, just to keep people alive. Once Dong Zhuo falls, obviously the battle's over. Rebel forces are just kind of nothing. I don't know if it was this one or Destiny of the Emperor 2, which I may play. That one's fan-translated, much like Front Mission was. That one's a lot more streamlined in the fact that it tries to follow the story, but then eventually does break off and do its own thing. But I think there's one, I don't know if it's this game or the next one, that had an area that, like, the rebel forces are just that much more stronger than anything else in the game. I'll have to look that up. But then they give, like, massive amounts of experience. I'll have to look that up and see where that's at. Because right at the end we'll want to grind. Alright, so he's about to fall. I'm doing pretty good in terms of hit points now. He's hitting pretty weak now. I can auto-battle. Alright, so we're pretty much done here. On the next episode, we're going to go into Luo Yang and see the state of it and see where we go from there. Retreat back to Chang'an and regroup. So, hope you come back for that. We'll start fresh and new on the next episode going into that city. So, my name is Lucklight. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.